HOA police break into my home office, seize my work files, claim they're government agents. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation where I'd have to defend my home office from people pretending to be federal agents, but here we are. This whole nightmare started about 6 months ago when our Homeowners Association board underwent some major changes. Let me tell you how a group of power-hungry retirees tried to turn our peaceful suburban community into their personal police state. I'm a cybersecurity consultant working remotely for several government contractors. My home office is where I handle sensitive but unclassified data, so security is important to me. We've lived in the Oakridge Gardens community for 5 years without any major issues. Sure, the HOA could be pedantic about lawn maintenance and holiday decorations, but nothing prepared me for what was coming. Everything changed when Gerald Thompson, a retired mall security supervisor, became the new HOA president. Within weeks, he established what he called the Community Compliance and Security Unit, CCSU. At first, it seemed like standard HOA overreach, a few retirees in khaki uniforms patrolling the neighborhood in golf carts, writing up violations for unmowed lawns or unauthorized garden gnomes. We're implementing enhanced security measures for everyone's safety, Gerald announced at the monthly HOA meeting. The CCSU will have expanded authority to investigate potential violations. I should have paid more attention when my neighbor, Sarah, warned me about their increasingly aggressive behavior. They tried to force their way into my backyard last week, she told me over the fence. Claimed they needed to inspect my shed for unauthorized modifications. I told them to get lost. They can't do that without permission, I assured her. They're just trying to intimidate people. I was wrong. They could and they would try, with disastrous consequences for them. The trouble started when I received a notice claiming my home office window tinting violated HOA regulations. The tinting was professionally installed and explicitly permitted under our community guidelines for home offices. I sent a polite email explaining this, attaching the relevant documentation. Gerald's response was unsettling. The CCSU has reason to believe you're conducting unauthorized business activities. We'll need to inspect your home office to ensure compliance. That's not happening, I replied. The HOA has no authority to inspect the interior of my home. Any concerns about business activities can be addressed through proper channels. A week later, I was on a video call with a client when I heard glass breaking downstairs. I muted my microphone and listened intently. Heavy footsteps echoed through the house. "Federal agents! Compliance inspection!" a voice shouted. My heart raced as I quickly ended the call and activated my home security cameras through my phone. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. 3 members of the CCSU, including Gerald, were in my house. They wore cheap knockoff tactical vests with "Federal Agent" poorly stenciled on the back. I immediately called police. "There are people who broke into my house claiming to be federal agents," I whispered, giving them my address. "I'm locked in my home office upstairs." "Stay where you are," the dispatcher advised. "Officers are en route." The CCSU members reached my office door. "Open up. This is a federal compliance inspection." "You're not federal agents," I called out. "The police are on their way. I suggest you leave immediately." Instead of leaving, they started ramming the door. I grabbed my phone and started recording video just as the door burst open. Gerald led the charge, wielding what looked like a home goods clipboard with authority. "This is a federal inspection. We have reports of unauthorized business activities and potential security violations," Gerald declared, his face red with exertion. The 2 others with him, Bob Wilson, our former HOA treasurer, and Frank Murphy, who always complained about everyone's Christmas lights, started rifling through my filing cabinets. "You have exactly 10 seconds to leave my house before you add several more criminal charges to what you've already committed," I stated calmly, continuing to record. "We have every right to be here. We're authorized agents of the community." Gerald was practically spitting as he spoke. "Frank, grab those files. Bob, check his computer." That's when we heard the sirens. Real federal agents don't show up in a golf cart with federal agent written in Sharpie on a vest from Party City, I pointed out. But please, keep digging your hole deeper. I'm recording everything. The color drained from Frank and Bob's faces, but Gerald was too far gone. He grabbed a stack of my work files and headed for the door. These are evidence of unauthorized activities. We could hear police officers entering downstairs. Police! Everyone freeze. What followed was both terrifying and absurd. Gerald tried to claim to the police that he was conducting an authorized federal investigation. The responding officers were professionally unamused. "Sir, impersonating a federal agent is a federal offense," one officer explained while handcuffing Gerald. "You have the right to remain silent." The next few hours were a blur of police reports. Real federal agents, who were very interested in civilians impersonating federal agents, and crime scene technicians documenting the break-in. My security cameras had captured everything, from their initial break-in to their attempts to steal my work files. The legal aftermath was spectacular. The district attorney charged Gerald, Bob, and Frank with multiple felonies: breaking and entering, attempted theft, impersonating federal officers, and criminal damage to property. But I wasn't done. I contacted Diana Chen, a lawyer specializing in HOA disputes, and she was practically giddy when I showed her the evidence. "This is beyond ordinary HOA overreach," Diana said during our first meeting. "They violated federal law, state law, and about 15 different HOA bylaws. We're going to dismantle this entire operation." The civil lawsuit we filed named not just the 3 direct participants, but the entire HOA board that had approved the creation of the CCSU. The discovery process revealed shocking details about Gerald's security unit. They had been conducting illegal inspections throughout the neighborhood, entering homes when residents weren't there, and even setting up surveillance cameras without authorization. They kept detailed files on residents they deemed suspicious, which seemed to be anyone who ever questioned their authority. During Gerald's deposition, his true motivations became clear. "As CCSU commander, I have a responsibility to maintain order," he declared pompously. "Commander?" Diana asked. "Is that a title recognized by the HOA bylaws?" We needed to establish a chain of command for effective operations. And these operations included breaking into homes and impersonating federal agents? We weren't impersonating anyone. We were acting as authorized agents of the community. "Mr. Thompson, can you point to anywhere in the HOA bylaws that authorizes you to break into homes?" Sometimes extreme measures are necessary to maintain compliance. The civil trial was shorter than expected. The evidence was overwhelming, and the HOA's insurance company was eager to settle once they realized the extent of liability they were facing. The settlement included complete dissolution of the CCSU, removal of the entire HOA board, $500,000 in damages to be paid to affected homeowners, a complete restructuring of the HOA with new bylaws preventing future security operations. My legal fees covered in full. The criminal cases moved slower, but the outcomes were equally satisfying. Gerald took his case to trial, apparently believing he could convince a jury that his actions were justified. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before finding him guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Bob and Frank took plea deals and received probation, along with significant community service hours. The aftermath transformed our community. The new HOA board, led by my neighbor Sarah, who had warned me about the CCSU, focused on actual community improvements rather than enforcement. The story made national news, leading to several other communities examining their own HOA security practices. I still work from my home office, though I upgraded the security system. The window tinting that started this whole mess remains in place, now explicitly protected by our new HOA bylaws. Sometimes I see the golf cart that the CCSU used to patrol in, now used by our maintenance staff to carry gardening tools, a much better use of community resources. The whole experience taught me valuable lessons about standing up to abuse of power, no matter how small scale it might seem. It also showed me the importance of community involvement in local governance. Several of my neighbors now regularly attend HOA meetings, ensuring transparency and preventing overreach. Last week, I received a letter from Gerald's attorney. He's up for parole soon and wanted to apologize for his actions. The letter seemed sincere enough, acknowledging that he had let power go to his head and lost perspective on reality. I wrote back accepting his apology but declining his request to support his parole application. Some lessons need to fully sink in. Sarah stopped by yesterday to discuss some actual community improvements, a new playground and a community garden. As we looked over the plans, she smiled and said, "You know, in a weird way, we should thank Gerald. If he hadn't gone completely power mad, we might still be arguing about acceptable shades of beige for exterior paint." I had to laugh. True, but I could have done without the break-in and attempted theft. "At least you got some good security footage out of it," she replied. That clip of Gerald trying to explain to the police that his Party City vest made him a federal agent is still circulating on neighborhood watch groups as a what not to do example. The experience changed how I view community involvement. I'm now on several committees helping to shape our neighborhood's future, ensuring that we maintain a balance between reasonable guidelines and personal freedom. We even created a Residents' Bill of Rights, explicitly outlining what the HOA can and cannot do. Sometimes, late at night when I'm working, I'll glance at my security cameras out of habit. Instead of seeing wannabe federal agents in golf carts, I usually spot neighbors walking their dogs or kids riding bikes. That's what a community should be. People living their lives, not living in fear of overzealous enforcement. The window tinting that started it all still gets comments from new neighbors. "Isn't that against HOA rules?" they'll ask. I just smile and tell them, actually, there's quite a story behind that. The legal precedent set by our case has had ripple effects throughout the state. Several other HOAs have had to revise their enforcement policies, and there's now pending legislation to more clearly define the limits of HOA authority. Diana, my lawyer, has become something of an expert in these cases, helping other communities prevent similar situations. "Your case was a perfect storm," she told me recently. "An HOA drunk on power, clear violations of state and federal law, and excellent documentation of everything. It's become a textbook example of how not to run an HOA." The security cameras that captured everything are still in place, though they've only had to record legitimate activities since then. The footage of the break-in is preserved on multiple hard drives, partly as evidence, partly as a reminder that standing up to abuse of power is always worth the effort. Some good things came from this mess. Our community is stronger, more united, and better governed. The new HOA board is transparent and responsive. We've even started community events that bring people together instead of driving them apart with petty enforcement. My home office remains my sanctuary, though now it's even more secure. The experience taught me that while most people are reasonable, it only takes a few individuals with unchecked authority to create chaos. It also showed me that when people stand together against abuse, positive change is possible. Last month, we had our annual community picnic in the park that replaced the CCSU's former command center, which was really just a converted storage shed. As I watched kids playing and neighbors chatting, I couldn't help but reflect on how different things could have been if no one had stood up to Gerald and his makeshift police force. The story of the HOA police break-in has become part of our community's lore, a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked authority and the importance of civic engagement. New residents hear about it during their welcome orientation, usually followed by reassurances that those days are long gone. I still have the Party City tactical vest that was entered into evidence and returned after the trial. It hangs in my office as a reminder that sometimes the most serious threats to our freedom come not from obvious enemies, but from ordinary people who lose perspective and abuse whatever small authority they have. The window tinting stays, both as a practical security measure and a symbol of standing up to unreasonable demands. Every now and then, I catch a glimpse of my reflection in those tinted windows and remember the day I heard glass breaking downstairs. It reminds me that protecting our rights, even in something as seemingly minor as an HOA dispute, is always worth the effort. Our community learned valuable lessons about governance, accountability, and the importance of staying involved in local affairs. The HOA still exists, but now it serves the community rather than trying to control it. And if anyone ever suggests forming another security unit, well, we have plenty of documentation to show why that's a terrible idea. The experience changed me too. I'm more involved in local governance, not just in our HOA, but in city affairs as well. It taught me that protecting our rights often starts at the most local level, and that vigilance against abuse of power is everyone's responsibility. As I finish writing this account, I can hear children playing in the new community park through my still-tinted office window. It's a reminder that positive change is possible, even if it sometimes takes a dramatic confrontation to catalyze it. Our community is stronger now, more united, and more vigilant against the kind of overreach that almost turned our neighborhood into a miniature police state. The lesson is clear. No matter how small the stage, abuse of power must be confronted. Whether it's a federal agency or a retired mall cop with delusions of grandeur, the principles remain the same. Stand firm, document everything, know your rights, and never be afraid to fight back when those rights are violated. And if you ever find yourself facing your own HOA issues, remember, sometimes the best defense against unreasonable authority is simply standing your ground and letting them dig their own hole. Just make sure your security cameras are running when they do. 2 years later, the aftermath. I didn't expect to be writing an update to this story, but recent events have shown just how far-reaching the consequences of standing up to abuse of power can be. A lot has happened in the 2 years since the CCSU incident, and I think it's important to share how things turned out. First, the legal aftermath continued to unfold in unexpected ways. Remember Gerald Thompson, our wannabe federal agent? He did get paroled after serving 18 months, but his legal troubles were far from over. The federal investigation into his activities revealed that the CCSU had been doing more than just harassing homeowners. They'd been collecting and selling personal information gathered during their illegal inspections. I found this out when 2 FBI agents visited my home office, real ones this time, with proper credentials, to discuss evidence they'd found on Gerald's personal computer. The CCSU had compiled detailed dossiers on residents, including photographs taken through windows, copies of mail they'd intercepted, and even recordings from illegal surveillance devices they'd planted in some homes. Your security footage was crucial in breaking this case open, Agent Martinez told me. Without it, we might never have discovered the extent of their operation. The federal charges that followed made our original case look minor in comparison. Gerald, along with several former CCSU members we hadn't even known about, faced multiple counts of wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. This time, Gerald didn't try to fight it. He took a plea deal that added another 5 years to his sentence. The civil implications were massive. Diana, my lawyer, filed a class action lawsuit on behalf of all affected residents. The discovery process revealed that the HOA's insurance company had known about some of these activities but failed to act, making them liable as well. This is unprecedented in HOA case law, Diana explained during a community meeting. The insurance company's negligence and oversight has opened them up to punitive damages. The settlement negotiations were intense. I sat in on several of them as a key witness and community representative. The insurance company's lawyers tried to minimize their liability, but our evidence was overwhelming. Either we reach a fair settlement, Diana told them, or we take this to trial and let a jury see exactly how your client enabled the systematic violation of an entire community's privacy. They settled. The final agreement included a $15 million compensation fund for affected residents, mandatory privacy protection services for all residents for 10 years, complete restructuring of the insurance company's HOA oversight procedures, funding for a new community security system designed with proper privacy protections, creation of a legal defense fund for HOA residents nationwide who face similar situations. My role in exposing all this led to some interesting opportunities. I've been asked to consult with several state legislators working on HOA reform laws. The bill they're drafting, informally known as the No Fake Cops Act, would make it a state felony for HOA employees or volunteers to impersonate law enforcement officers or conduct unauthorized surveillance. Sarah, our new HOA president, has turned our community into a model for proper HOA governance. We've implemented a resident oversight committee that reviews all enforcement actions, and our meetings are now live-streamed for transparency. Other HOAs regularly send representatives to learn from our example. You know what the best part is? Sarah told me recently, our property values have actually gone up since we stopped acting like a police state. Turns out people prefer living in a community that respects their rights. The security industry has taken notice too. I've been invited to speak at several conferences about the importance of home security in preventing HOA overreach. My security camera footage has become a training tool for police departments learning how to handle cases of civilian law enforcement impersonation. Bob and Frank, who'd received probation in the original case, have taken different paths. Bob moved away shortly after completing his community service, but Frank has worked hard to make amends. He now volunteers with a civil rights organization that helps homeowners fight HOA abuse. I got caught up in the power trip, Frank admitted during a community reconciliation meeting, watching that security footage of myself following Gerald's orders like some mindless drone. It was a wake-up call I needed. The window tinting that started it all has become something of a local landmark. New residents often ask about the office that took down the HOA police. I've used my experience to help other homeowners set up proper security systems, emphasizing the importance of documentation in fighting abuse of power. My cybersecurity consulting business has grown, partly due to the publicity from the case. I now specialize in helping small communities and organizations implement security measures that protect both property and privacy. The irony of Gerald's actions leading to better security practices isn't lost on me. The former CCSU Command Center has been converted into a community technology center, offering classes on cybersecurity, privacy protection, and civil rights. We even have a regular workshop called Know Your HOA Rights, which has helped numerous residents understand and protect their interests. Last month, I received an unexpected letter from Gerald's daughter. She wanted to meet and apologize for her father's actions. Over coffee, she shared how the experience had affected their family. Dad was always controlling, she explained, but we never thought he'd go this far. The worst part is, he still doesn't fully understand what he did wrong. He talks about it like he was trying to help the community, not exploit it. The meeting gave me perspective on how power corrupts at every level. Gerald wasn't some criminal mastermind. He was just someone who never learned that authority comes with responsibility, not just power. The legal precedent set by our case continued to have ripple effects. 3 other communities in our state have successfully sued their HOAs for similar privacy violations, using our case as a template. Diana has become the go-to lawyer for HOA abuse cases, and she's currently working on a book about protecting homeowner rights. Our community's transformation has been remarkable. Instead of fear and suspicion, there's now a sense of genuine cooperation. We still have rules. Every community needs some structure, but they're enforced with transparency and respect for residents' rights. The surveillance equipment the CCSU had installed throughout the neighborhood was removed and donated to a police training facility, where it's used to teach officers how to identify illegal surveillance operations. Every piece of equipment they'd used to spy on residents is now helping to prevent similar abuse. My home office remains my workspace, but it's also become a symbol of resistance against unchecked authority. The security system that caught Gerald and his fake police force has been upgraded, but I kept one of the original cameras that recorded their break-in. It serves as a reminder that standing firm against abuse of power, no matter how insignificant it might seem at first, can lead to meaningful change. The national attention our case received has led to some positive changes in HOA regulations across the country. Several states have passed laws requiring HOAs to have clear enforcement guidelines and prohibiting them from creating private security forces. Our community's new bylaws have been used as a template for these reforms. Looking back, the whole experience taught me that fighting for what's right isn't just about winning. It's about creating lasting change that prevents others from facing similar abuse. Every HOA meeting I attend, every homeowner I help protect their rights, and every security improvement we implement reinforces this lesson. The tinted windows of my home office still catch the morning sun, but now they represent something more than just privacy and security. They're a reminder that sometimes the biggest changes start with something as simple as standing your ground and refusing to be intimidated by those who abuse their authority. Our community's story has become more than just a cautionary tale about HOA overreach. It's a blueprint for how ordinary people can stand up to abuse of power and create positive change. The lessons we learned continue to help others fight similar battles, and the systems we put in place ensure that no future HOA board can ever again try to turn our neighborhood into their personal surveillance state. In the end, what Gerald and his fake police force never understood was that true security doesn't come from control and intimidation. It comes from building a community where people's rights are respected and protected. That's the legacy of our fight, and it's something worth protecting for generations to come.